is up, guys? Welcome to module number 4. In this lesson, we're going to talk about targeting, one of the um, most known subjects in the advertising world, the one that probably is the most overrated one, to be honest. You'll see in a second why. I actually think that targeting isn't that important. Well, not important the way that people think of it, at least. So, first of all, let's actually go over what essentially the audience inside the targeting segment is. And then we're going to go in and I'm going to explain to you how efficiently to actually do your targeting. So first of all, when you go in, of course, you pick your targeting on the ad set level. If you don't know that already, it starts off by custom audience. That's the first thing that you'll see, which is usually not the first thing that you're going to use if you don't have any custom audiences. A custom audience is basically any audience that you uploaded to Facebook or that you created on your own, like an email list. If you uploaded an email list, if you have website traffic, you can use that as an audience. Page engagers, you create an audience of people that engaged the page, which is essentially just custom audiences. Those of you that don't know what a custom audience is basically an audience that you build from your own data. So email list, website traffic, page engagers, which is people that engage with your page, if it's commented, liked on your post or whatever, video viewers, anybody that viewed your video, lookalike audiences, and much more. These are only a few examples. Custom audiences are usually going to be the bread and butter after you get some data, because you're usually going to use these as a targeting, as to target usually lookalikes, interests. Slowly you'll less and less use once you have lookalikes, because lookalikes are just almost like interests on steroids, because they actually take the data that you already have and create audiences out of that. So it's like a unique audience to you. So yeah, that's the custom audience field. After that, you have the country field. Now, country-wise, it's recommended to combine countries that are similar and close to each other. So like we like to combine like the USA and Canada, or we like to combine like Australia and New Zealand. And it's almost like the same type of people. You know what I mean? It's not like, connecting, let's say, the United States with Mexico, even though they're close to each other. That won't be a good idea, because you're getting two very different types of people rather than the USA and Canada. So I really like to connect countries that are close to each other into one ad set, because it's just more efficient. And as well, another thing is that only targeting the United States, which a lot of advertisers do, is, in my opinion, just a huge waste of money and potential. Most of our targeting isn't even to the US, to be honest, because it's just so expensive and so saturated. We see so much better results most of the time with other countries, like Europe a lot of times, United Kingdom, Australia, Canada. USA it used to be the bread and butter of targeting, but today there's no reason not to target outside of the US. I remember in the past everybody would only target the US without targeting anything outside of it, which is a shame, because there's so much more audience that has so much more potential. You'll be surprised. And so yeah, of course, there's still a huge segment of revenue that we generate from the US. Some products that we skill only works in the US, but again, the USA is no longer a top priority for us. Like, for example, what we like to do, and I'm actually going to share that with you, is we target the top 25 GDP countries of the world. And I'll share with you that list, which is basically 25 countries that are basically the richest countries in the world. By richest, that's like, GDP is basically gross domestic product, right? I'll give you some examples of countries for the GDP. So that's of course the US, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. You got France, you got Luxembourg, you got the Netherlands, you got Qatar, you got Saudi Arabia. You got a lot of these countries that you wouldn't have even thought about targeting. But honestly, there are so many countries that are just much worth your money, much more. So that's the locations. Now I'm basically going over every segment. As you know, after I'm done with this, of course, I'm going to give you a specific strategy. So just so we're clear on that. After the countries, we're going to reach the ages. Now, I'd give you a tip, is that if you don't know this already, you want to keep this as broad as possible, unless you already know your audience for a fact. And by I mean for a fact, that means that you already have generated thousands of sales and you know who's buying from you. If you don't, then if you don't have at least a few thousands of sales, don't touch this, because the thing is that people think that they know what their audience is when actually they don't. And I've actually made this mistake countless times myself. And the thing is, outside of that, even if you think you know, or you know that your audience are probably ages 20 to 25, there's no reason to basically tell Facebook to go and only target 20 to 25, because Facebook as it is will already optimize on whatever is converting. So even if your audience is 20 to 25 and you know it's 20 to 25, keep it at 18 to 65, because eventually it will get to that 20 to 25. And it will do that pretty fast, because the more people engage, the more people click on your links, the more people buy. It will very, very fastly start to optimize on what converts the most. Again, unless, let's say you have, it depends really on your product, of course, but if you're selling, let's say, products for single mothers, or like, let's say, mothers that for their babies, then obviously you're not going to target ages 18. You're going to probably target ages like 24 to 35 or something. But only at those scenarios you need to target those type of ages. You see what I mean? Like, for example, you only want to target specific ages, when you know for a fact that that is your audience, because you won't be selling baby products to a 65-year-old. You won't be selling baby products to an 18-year-old. You'll be selling it to mothers, and new mothers are usually at the ages of 24 to 35. Again, I'm no mommy expert, so don't quote me on that, but you get what I mean. Don't try to think for Facebook. Facebook will optimize anyway, unless there is really a specific audience that you need to target. Like, even if you're selling alcohol, you can't target 18 to 21, you'll get banned. So of course you start off on 21, and so on and so on. Okay. So with that being said, moving on to language. Now, language is really, really important. That if you target any non-English speaking countries, most of Europe, then you want to make sure to put English in the languages, because you're basically going to target a lot of people that don't speak English, don't even understand your ad copy. Of course, unless your ads are not in English. But I know most of you watching this are doing English speaking language. So that's a good way to do it. If you're targeting anything outside of English speaking countries, just put English. My recommendation is just to keep it English no matter what. If you're talking the United States, if you're targeting Canada, still put English, just so you filter out those that don't speak English. And how Facebook detects this, if I'm not mistaken, is that it sees what type, it basically detects what language the Facebook of the person is. So, a lot of Hispanic people will have a Spanish Facebook. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't speak English. They're just more comfortable with Spanish. But even then, like, you don't want to take the risk and spend money on an audience that isn't really an English speaker. So we just put English all the time on languages. That's because we're selling to English speaking people. So if you're selling to English speaking people, which you probably are, the least you should do is to put English as a language when you're targeting anything outside the United States or Canada, like Europe or Asia. And then we have, of course, detailed targeting, which is the bread and butter, which is the most important piece in your ad set, in your targeting at least, which is basically everything out of everything. What people are interested in, if it's an audience, if it's keywords, if it's pages, behaviors, which can be parents, homeowners, etc. And I mentioned this before, but when you have enough data to build a lookalike audience, usually that will work much better than interests. Most of the time, not all the time, most of the time, because again, lookalikes can go all the way up to like a 20 million audience, and they'll be built out of your own data. So that's usually going to be the audience that's going to work for you the most. But up until then, interests is of course the only way that you should go. And so you have interests and you have behaviors, right? This is where you're going to, most of the juice of the ads is going to be. So you have two things. You have two segments to this, the detailed targeting. You have behaviors, and then you have interests. You actually have demographics, and you have another subject as well, but we usually don't go too much into that. We usually just stick to behaviors and interests. So behaviors, that's third-party data. Third-party data meaning that this is basically data given to Facebook from a third-party source. So let's say there's an homeowner company, right, that deals with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of homeowners, right? So they give this data to a data source, which is that's where Facebook take their data, and then they buy that data out from them, which basically means that who's going to pay for that data? Obviously Facebook is, but you need to chip in as well. So you'll actually notice that some of the data will actually have like a 15% disclaimer when you actually see. I think I have it somewhere here. Yeah, I'll show it to you. I'll show it to you soon. I think it's one of the slides I actually mentioned it, but essentially third-party data, usually behaviors, you'll notice this in some of them and some of them you won't. When you actually put your mouse cursor over like the little icon, like the information icon, some of them will have like a disclaimer saying that this will cost you 15% more, that this will basically be 15% more expensive, which sometimes is actually worth it because you have some really dope behaviors. But that's just to mention. And again, so behaviors, basically it's data given to Facebook by a third-party source, which can be anything from like purchase behaviors to device usage, what type of device they use, what kind of vehicle do they drive, are they looking to buy a vehicle, do they own a business, do they donate to charity, are they expats, or what's their purchase behaviors, are they traveling, and etc, etc. Again, I encourage you to go and scroll through it. There's literally dozens, if not hundreds, of different behaviors. So make sure to check that out. And a very important note, not all behavior data is available for everyone. Unfortunately, in the US, there's more variety of behaviors than, like, let's say now I'm in Israel, so there's not going to be as much. And that's not that much of a big deal, to be honest. Like, we don't really use behaviors that much, and it's not really like a make or break deal. It's not like people that live in the US or something, they have a priority, so don't play the victim card or something and be like, oh, the USA, they have better priorities than me, they have better targeting. No, nobody cares about that. It's you can be successful regardless, and we barely use behaviors anyway. But it is good to know because there are specific behaviors that are actually pretty dope, like people that have a specific purchase behaviors, like online shoppers. So that's actually pretty good because that's a segment of people that are online buyers. So again, not necessarily you're gonna need that because your targeting is already pretty good even without the behaviors. But sometimes we'll use it, sometimes we won't. But yeah, like I said, you have your behaviors. Some of them will be a bit more expensive, and not all the behavioral data is open for everyone. So other than behaviors, you have interests. Interests is basically the most used targeting. So yeah, interests will be your most used targeting until you at least create your lookalikes. Now, interests are basically anything that the user is interested in, from a page they liked to the post they shared, apps they use. Basically, there are an infinite amount of interests, and some are very, very targeted, some are more broad. Now, a good tip is to not target anything under a 1 million audience size. And that's basically ad set wise. And what I mean by 1 million audience size, I don't mean just only to target interests that are over 1 million, but I mean that the combination of your entire targeting, your potential reach number, which you see on the top right in your targeting, that needs to be over 1 million. Below that, it starts to get, like, the thing about Facebook ads is the bigger the audience that you're targeting, the cheaper the ad is going to be. The smaller the audience that you target, the more expensive the ads is going to be. So if you're going to target a 20,000 audience, that's going to be 20 times more expensive or 10 times more expensive than if you target 5 million people. So again, try not to target anything under 1 million. And again, what I mean by that, just so we're not mistaken here, it doesn't mean that you can't pick audiences below 1 million. It just means that the combination of all of those audiences should be over 1 million, which you can see at the top right. A good tool to check out interests, to research them, is obviously Audience Insights, or just plain Google. Like, a lot of our research we just do in Google. We'll just write some keywords and we'll find some dope ass pages, assets, interests, like a store, like a brand, and then we're just gonna use that. And it's actually fine as well to just use what comes to your head in the field. So by field, I mean like actually typing whatever you're thinking of in the actual field there. Like if, again, I'm going to give the example of like dogs. If you own a French Bulldog and you have a French Bulldog store, just write French Bulldog and then you'll find a list of suggestions. Those are actually, to be honest, like a year, 2 years ago, they didn't work as good. Today we use it a lot. We do sometimes, like when we actually want to put time into a product, we will do audience research, and I'm going to encourage you to do audience research as well. But sometimes when we're lazy, and sometimes when we already know our niche and we know our audience, we'll just type it in and we already know what to target. But I encourage you to do a bit of audience research anyway. And the biggest and most important thing that I wanted to talk about is I don't want you to stress over targeting, because people stress too much over targeting. They think that targeting is everything, and honestly, targeting is like it's not a determining factor in the ad. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that you can go and if you're selling cameras, you can't go and target um, people that buy books by Anthony Robbins. I have a Anthony Robbins book here, because that's going to be two separate things. But if you're selling like dog products or you're selling camera products, then let's say you're selling camera products, don't try to stress over finding those very specific audiences or interests. You can go ahead and target big camera brands, and you'll usually be fine. Especially if you like flex them or narrow them until you reach a 1 to 2 million audience. By narrowing, I'm going to show you in a second what I mean if you don't know. It's basically telling Facebook on your ad set that, let's say, if we're talking cameras, let's say you want to target people that are interested in Canon and that are interested in Nikon. I think Nikon is a camera brand. Don't quote me on that, but those are two camera brands. So I can say, let's say if I target Canon, that's going to give me a 10 million audience. And let's say if I target Nikon, that's going to be like a 6 million audience. But if I target Canon, if I target people that are interested in Canon and that have to be interested in Nikon, that will usually take that audience size down to like 2-3 million. So you can even go that broad and you should be usually fine. It's not a make or break deal. You shouldn't go and search for those little audiences that are so small that you think are the most targeted, because they're not. It's basically just a compilation of, usually the big audiences have those type of people in it as well. And the smaller the audience that you target, the more expensive your ad sets are going to be. So we've kind of given up on trying to go too deep into audiences, and we still do our audience research, but we don't stress over it. As long as you're targeting people that are interested in your product, then you should be fine. And obviously, don't go for obvious big interests. Like, don't go for dog if you're saying dog products. Now, even camera products, like I said, I gave you the example of Canon or Nikon, but don't go and target camera. You know what I mean? Don't go and target just the interest or the word camera. Go and target camera brands. Don't go target target dog products, something a bit more targeted, but not too targeted, like PetSmart, which is a huge pet store. And again, try reaching an audience of about 1 to 5 million. That's a sweet spot. Anything around that, 2, 3 million, 4 million, 1 million, whatever, that's a good sweet spot. And that means that you can combine a lot of audiences, but I even recommend the more audience that you put and the more you flex it, the better it is, which I'm going to show you in a second. And another big tip is try to always divide your interests into categories. Depending on your niche, there's always going to be different categories, but by categories, I basically mean separating it to the categories of the interests. So if we're essentially, let's say we take the camera example again, we can have category of camera brands, camera websites, photography blogs, photography influencers, and suddenly we have 4 categories. And then we can actually separate the interest into 4 categories. So that can be anything from influencers to magazines to brands to stores, websites, blogs, celebrities. Again, depends on your niche. If you're going dog route, like the dog niche, again, your categories can be dog breeds, it can be influencers, it can be dog food brands, dog stores. Because the reason we want to do this is because this gives you the option to later on split as different categories and then see which category actually works the best, rather than just like compiling everything together. So let me show you really a quick example from what I mean. So if we go here, and let's just go and take the camera example again. So categories, so you open like a CSV sheet. Okay, this is how I do it. And then you just put like 4 rows or 3 rows or how many categories that you think. Usually you shouldn't go over 4. 4 is like optimal. Let's say brands. Okay, let's say blogs, photography blogs. Let's say influencers. No, let's say stores. Let's say stores. And let's say, what other category can cameras have? Let's see, camera, photography. Yeah, let's start with these 3. Let's start with brands, blogs, and stores. Now, what I'll usually use for that, I'll use Google and I'll use Facebook audience insights. So I'll use both of these. Let's see if I can get 2 audience insights through here, because I'd rather not go through my ads manager. See if that's good enough. Awesome, great. So, awesome. So we have, where is our thingy? Okay, so we have our categories, right? Let's start with 3. Maybe we'll add another one later on. So let's go, and first of all, I think for myself, right? I'll go and I'll Google, let's say, photography, camera brands, right? And then already we have a bunch of them, right? We have Canon, Nikon, Pentax, Sony, Olympus. Now, we do want to put some general knowledge into it. Like Sony, for example, I know that Sony isn't only a camera brand. It can be anything from a Sony PlayStation, it can be a TV, it can be a billion different electronics, so I'm not going to use it. But of course, probably a lot of you are not. If you don't know that, it's important to do your own research. Now, I'm not going to go and search every single one of these because I kind of know what is what. So Canon, I know that it's solely a camera company. At least most of it is, people are known, Cameron is known as a camera company. So I'll take that, I'll check if there's an interest for it. I'll usually go worldwide here. I'll just remove United States. I'll put Canon Incorporated. And I have 20 to 25 million people in there, so I'll go and I'll write Canon here. Okay, and then I'll even put like the audience size. And then I'll go and there was even a few others like Canon. See, there's even specific cameras, as you can see. Like we can even go and say like specific cameras, like let's see the size of this audience, Canon EOS 70. So you see this is 2.5 to 3 million. So I can even add that as another category. Like we have cameras and we have brands and we have like cameras. So I can go and I'll just copy that and just put that here and put let me reduce this boldness here and do this 2 to 2.5 million. Make this a bit bigger here. Which is, oh, there it is. 1 second. There it is. Okay, so make everything a bit bigger. So I'm gonna just gather up as many as I can. We're gonna start that Canon. Let's say some other ones. Canon EOS 5D, and I'm not gonna go and waste you guys' time and just go one by one and actually show you that because it's pretty self-explanatory. But I do want to get like at least like 5 to 10 interests of every category here, just so you see what I mean. So something like that. Now let's go to the next brand, right? So we got Canon, and we got Nikon, right? Nikon. So Nikon is, if I'm not mistaken, at least that's a full-on camera brand, and it is. So I'll go and I'll copy that and I'll put that here. Nikon 20 to 25 million. So I'll go and write that down, which is the same audience size as Canon. So we got Nikon, and I can find some other dope things like in the page likes. I can click on that, and then what I'll find is other specific, sometimes not all the time, especially if you go worldwide and you don't target a specific country, I'll find a lot of random page likes. But again, not that big of a deal. We just continue our research. So we got Nikon, Pentax. Let's see I don't actually know what Pentax is. If it's another camera brand, yes, it is. So I'm gonna write that down. Pentax, and that's a. You want to make sure, by the way, that you're actually like that. The entry that you put is the actual one, because some like businesses have same names. But the reason I'm saying that is because this only has like 700 to 800,000 users worldwide, and I can't really find like things that are related to photography. So I just don't. I want to make sure that I'm not putting something that is not photography, because you see even the pages are not appearing. So let me actually put Pentax again. Maybe it has a different name. I don't know. I can't like yeah. I'll probably find some cameras here. Like this one is a camera probably, but it's yeah. Let's see. Yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna skip that just to not like overcomplicate things and to not like go into um a field that I'm not aware of. So Olympus, probably I don't want to use Olympus just because it's too broad of a word. So let's say Fujifilm, more cameras. Let's remove this. Fujifilm. And you see this is probably good. This is 10 to 15 minutes. I could assume that this is actually the the camera company. Fujifilm. Yeah, sometimes I'll just go and check a few of the pages to see if this is actually a camera company, and you can see Fujifilm, and it's that. So I'm just going to take that, I take this interest, and as well I'm going to put it here. Fuji. And I'm going to put the audience size, and now this is only the United States, don't forget, so I'm going to remove that, and I got 10 to 15 million users. So yeah, I can continue going brand by brand and finding and researching, but I want to show you guys more categories. So now let's go to blogs, right? Let's go to top, well, I'll just go Google top photography blogs. And let's see what we can find. Top 27 photography blogs you must follow as a photographer. Let's see. So I'm just going to take one by one feature shoot, and I'm going to check if it exists as an audience. Because basically, the reason I'm checking it here is because I want to see if it even exists. Because a lot of things do not exist on Facebook Audience Insights. And if they don't exist on the Facebook Audience Insights, you cannot target them. Okay? So it's really important to check that. And this one is not appearing in the search, so it does not exist. Let's see, Chase. So you see this guy exists, Chase Jarvis, let's say if we're talking about the same chef, Chase Jarvis. Yeah, if you've ever wondered about pro photographers, yeah, so he's a photographer, great. So I'm going to take that guy, and I don't even know if you can put him under blogs, because he's an influencer kind of, but yeah, it can be blogs / influencers. Because usually the people that own the blog is an influencer. So, and then his audience size was 150 to 200,000. So I'm going to put that 50 to 200,000. I'm going to continue on my search. Richard Rindby. Now he has as well 50 to 60,000. Now, you want to have at least about 10 of every single category. So 10 brands, 10 blogs, influencers, 10 stores, 10 cameras for this example. Again, I'm not going to push you and say that it has to happen, because there might not be, let's say, 10 blogs that are big enough, or 10 stores. Usually, if that's the case, I would pick a different category. That way because you want to have as many interests as possible that you can play with, okay? So let's go here as a J. So this J has like 2 interests, so I'll usually put both of them like this. 100 to 150,000. 100 to 150K. Okay, and yeah, like basically I'll continue and pick one by one, and if they exist, I'll put them under the blogs influencers. Let's go to camera stores now. I don't know if there's even like an actual brand name camera store, like camera store, like biggest camera stores. Yeah, that might have not been a really good like category, to be honest. I might need to change that to, let's see, like honestly, I might find a different category, or I'll just stick to only 3 categories, because we have the camera category, we have the brands, and we have the blogs influencers. And sometimes that's enough, because the thing is that you want to really focus on to have as many interests as possible, and not necessarily from as many categories as possible, because that's just going to overcomplicate you. The sweet spot, in my opinion, for categories is 3, 4. If you cannot find 4, 3 is still fine. But yeah, so I'll just remove the stores. Again, the only reason I'm doing this is because I don't want to waste your guys' time. I don't want to like go down a rabbit hole of, even though I made my point, I don't want to continue, fluffing it up. So I'll compile a list of these blogs, influencers, cameras, brands, until I have at least like 10 of each. And that's going to be my interests that I'm going to use later on, which I'm going to show you when we actually structure our ads. So I actually try to follow this step by step. And your homework, let's even go and even create a slide on the fly behind the scenes. Your homework, go create a CSV with a compilation of interests in your niche. Okay? Decide on the categories and have at least 10 interests per category. I want you guys to have this until the next video, because the thing is that we're going to use those interests to actually create ads, and I'm basically going to do this over the shoulder. So I want to make sure that you actually have these interests with you. I'm going to take as an example my interest that I just compiled here. But if you really want to follow along, you don't have to, but if you really want to follow along, I would recommend you to actually create this own CSV sheet yourself. This way you can follow along and create ads on your own. So with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video.